Okay, so we're live on Facebook, Eileen and Trevor. It's on my page, Todd Medina, my personal page. We originate everything off that page because of the algorithms at Facebook. If you want to share it from there, if you're on Facebook. Let me just put on a little different intro today because of what's going on. It's called Welcome to the Coronation. As soon as it plays and after we share and allow people to come in, we'll start the show. Found a higher elevation. I did a video earlier. Lower elevation. See that? Isn't that beautiful? Yeah. That light's even coming in. At least I can see it. I don't know if it's going to come out. It's a beautiful planet. We're a beautiful species. Everybody's got a role here. We don't understand it. It's time to move away from the lower density vibrations. The veil's been lifted. There's plenty of light beings, higher energies that we don't understand and can never understand as human beings. But we have company here on this earth, and we always have, but now that the veil's lifted, a lot more people are seeing it. Keep your head up. Keep the faith. Most of all, stay in your own power. Protect it. It's yours. It's the only thing you can own in this universe is you. Nobody can own you, and you can't own anybody. And anyone that ever came up with the idea, or whoever did come up with the idea that anything could be possessed on this earth was wrong. There's no such thing as a patent or a copyright or a trademark. There's no such thing as a contract. Nothing. Soul is soul. We're all one. And that's not a cliche. The light has won. We're all going to be part of this mutual rising. It's not just a soul thing. It's not just a Gaia thing. It's not just a solar system thing. Galactic. It involves more than our sun and our moon, and all the stars that we can see. It's the big time. Everybody that's here signed up for it. And it's about to pay off. I'll see y'all at the after party. Todd Medina, SoulogyOneStudios, wishing you peace, power, protection. Big love to you and yours. One. How's it going, everybody? Excuse me. We got a pretty unique day today. We got three couples on, 3 shows today. And the first one is Eileen and Trevor Bild. Let me just give you a little background on them before I pull them up. They are doing some great work. Let me just go through it real quick. They're a husband and wife power couple who have created a brand based on ordinary to extraordinary life. They started with live music, video productions, photography, weddings, and commercials, and advancing now onto TV. They bring you a combination of categories with engaging content that creates a 360 view of the world on their Roku channel, KNOB TV, which is an acronym for Knowledge, Notice, Observe, and Become. So let me get them up here now. And we got 42 people in the house. I want to say thank you, everybody, for your continued love and support and contributions on Patreon and PayPal that allow us to keep doing this as we work in our best efforts to expand this this platform that is designed to give everybody a voice. Hello.
Hey.
Hi.
How you doing, Trevor? How you doing, Eileen?
We're doing great.
Doing
Thank
great.
you.
Thank you for sharing space with us today and honoring us with your presence. We're excited to hear your story and what your purpose is as defined in that bio. Welcome to Soul Speaks 5D.
Thank you. We're glad to be here.
We're glad you're here. We're having an emphasis on couples in this transition that we call Ascension this month, and we're really happy to be getting this frequency out there. I don't know if you're familiar with the show. We've done about almost 1,800 episodes, and the famous question is, when did you wake up? But with couples, it's a little bit different. So how long you guys been together? When did you meet? Was there a knowing when you met? What's it been like? If you can give us a little backdrop.
It's been 11 years?
Since 2008, when we officially connected.
Wow.
And that was in a blog. It was we were like 3,000 miles apart.
Oh,
Not looking. I had a blog. I asked him to join, and I didn't know why. I kept seeing his icon on other blogs that I was also a part of, and he kept standing out, and I kept getting pulled towards him. And so finally I invited him to my blog, and after about a month, maybe 6 weeks, we discovered there was something special. So we decided to go private messaging just to chat, on a different level and beyond and outside of the regular blog. And it just led from that conversation to, or those conversations to pretty much an explosion is how I like to describe it. I used to say it was felt like being shot out of a cannon and just, going out into the universe in multiple pieces, and just, it was unexpected. Neither one of us was familiar with the twin flame concept. Both of us were in struggling relationships. And I think I had awakened a few years prior to that. So I was already working on my personal journey and working towards finding myself again. I had lost myself. And I believe the same was for him. So I like to say it was divinely co-conspired for us to come together.
Absolutely. Especially if there was that cosmic soulgasm whenever all the pieces of you went out into the universe to be reunited with his. How about you, Trevor? Were you already on the path of awakening when y'all met?
I've been one of those people that has been pretty much awake all my life. So I questioned everything. It was like, one of my earliest memories was watching people going, why is everybody faking it?
Yeah.
Because they were all faking it, and I didn't realize that I needed to fake it too. So I would kind of stood out, maybe like a sore thumb sometimes. And then finally one day, I was like, okay, I've got to create particular routines while remembering who I am in order to be able to work my way through the different social situations and school. And so I hung on to myself, but went, okay, well, from now on, we're going to behave this way in this scene and this way in this scene. And then, so I spent all my life questioning things, looking for the truth, studying about human relation, studying ancient knowledge. It wasn't until the relationship before Eileen is where I ended up. I gave myself up to try to please somebody else, and it kind of backfired.
Yeah, that didn't work.
It backfired really big. But the learning experience for me at that time was that it gave me a chance to learn how to deal with things without judging the other person, without getting emotionally involved, but actually looking forward to where I want it to be in the
Yeah.
future. Could learn to control my thinking about it, and actually be able to care about the other person regardless of what they were doing.
Yeah.
And then I started preparing my way out
Yeah.
That's when he met me.
because I was done. I learned what I needed to learn.
Yeah, and talking to couples, the feminine seems to be a catalyst for the masculine. I guess there's two different journeys there. But now, so you talked about the explosion. Did that happen in the first few weeks? And was the explosion kind of metaphoric for the reality of some dimensional experiences? You guys were apart. My wife and I were apart for, I think, 15 months, 16 months before we ever met. And there was a lot of dimensional activity, conscious and also the type that would just pop in, at least for me.
There was a lot of strange experiences, being 3,000 miles apart and still these particular things happening. The number one thing for me in the beginning was, wow, this person views things exactly like I do.
Yeah.
Except she was more feminine and
Oh,
I
I
was
hope so.
more masculine. Yeah, well, she was graceful, and I, had the tendency to mow through things.
He carries a sword on his side.
I
I had one of those too. I had to drop it.
Yeah.
He's done good. It's
I
still
kind of
there.
liked mine.
I did too. I loved mine.
Yeah, it's still there, but he only pulls it out, when absolutely necessary.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's a lot of course, it's been written, and I think even the connotations that are associated with twin flame have kind of been distorted. But whether you call it twin flame or soulmates or your other half or conscious sacred union, whatever, a lot of people, when we run programming like this, will have questions as to where's theirs at. How do I attract it? It sounds like you both were already emptying the cup to the point where you attracted your frequency, your closest frequency, whether it be split from the original cell or not. Is that something that continued after you met? People talk about mirrors? It's not always fluffy love and light in these relationships. I mean, it's like, they also serve as the best mirror. Did you find that you discovered more and more about yourself throughout these 11 years?
Fortunately for us, I believe Eileen will agree with me on this, at least she better. We had both step back and it did everything that we could to be comfortable within our own skin. So we were rethought things, learned new things, added to ourselves as we needed to, and let go of stuff that we didn't need anymore. So when we came together, we didn't bring a lot of baggage.
Yeah,
we're real fortunate that way. So what you hear so much of the time about twin flame and conflict, to resolve certain issues that are underlying, we haven't. The very littlest things may come up, but there's nothing.
No, and so I want to add to what he said to answer your question as far as when we came into this relationship, we were already working on our own personal self-development.
Yeah.
He'd been doing it just as a way of being. He didn't really know what he was doing, why he was doing it. I was doing it on purpose because of my experience with my prior relationship and having suffered from a debilitating condition that I self-healed from. So we were both already working from the inside out, clearing out. And because we think alike and we view life the same, when we came together, it was, we kept seeing this image of like cogs in a wheel connecting, and like attracting like, but not in a way that it's destructive. So we had a lot of trust in what our relationship was developing into, and it continues to evolve and develop. So it never, we don't look at our relationship as stagnant, and that now that we're together, that's it, we're done. I mean, it's the universe is always providing us with opportunities to grow, to continue to peel away any layers that might still be there. One of the things I noticed in the beginning, the first 4 to 5 years, is that there were triggers, for both of us from our other relationships, that the other person was the opposite of, but it still triggered us in feeling uncomfortable because we came from that prior relationship where it was a negative, whatever the action or whatever was being said. So we had to work through how to recognize when the other person did not mean something in a negative way that was a mirror of where we came from. So
what helps with that is that her and I are able to communicate totally openly.
Without judgment.
Yeah.
So, both of us understand that I understand that if I feel uncomfortable, it's me.
Yeah.
She knows the same thing.
Yeah.
Now, sometimes it takes a few minutes.
Yeah.
To go, whoa, wait a minute. We know the rules in this. So, and then what happens is then I'll start telling her the things that I appreciate about her.
Flip it.
And in reverse, because quite frankly, both of us bring a lot of things to the table for us together and what we do.
And there's total authenticity. So neither one of us is any different in any situation, whether we're at home or out in public, whether we're working, whether we're socializing, we are the same person. So people see that, they see that we're honest and we are who we say we are. And there's no mirrors, there's no mask, there's no smoke and mirrors. It is what it is. And people see that and they recognize it.
We get a lot of hugs.
Yeah, we get a lot of hugs.
A lot of hugs.
People want a little bit of, that explosion and the pieces. People want a little piece of that as us as a whole.
I kind of crack up because I'll watch Eileen and go, well, she's attracting all these people again.
Yeah. Well, you got to give hugs to get them, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly.
That's right.
So, and there's, of course, obviously there's been a lot of talk over the years, especially over these last, say, year and a half, 18, 24 months of energies, permeating onto the earth, whether they're coming from solar flares or the Galactic Federation or, the angels or whatever it may be, or just a natural evolution that, this cycle, 26,000 years. Some people talk about that, 13,000 years. People, expressing that they're feeling something, that stuff's coming up, or, their body feels out of whack, or they're imbalanced one way or the other. Do you experience this? And if so, how do you handle that as a couple? I mean, do you ever, you kind of covered that a second ago, but I mean, do you ever just say, you know what, I don't feel, I feel out of whack, or we're out of whack, or we're not aligned? If that happens, how do you approach that?
It doesn't happen much, but to explain maybe why we think the way we do about it. Most of my life, I always beat the averages. I didn't buy into, because the moon's here and Mars is here, I'm going to have issues, because I'm thinking well past that in the direction that I want to go. So I might feel uncomfortable for a minute, maybe because somebody told me I should.
Yeah.
And then one of the biggest keys for me is at any point that anything feels that way, it tends to stagnate you or stop you or hold you up. then that's a great time to create something new.
Yeah.
And change your focus.
So we've designed our life on purpose. And what I mean by that is we've recognized, as from the time that we got together to when we started our business, the video business, to now, that there's polarity in life, and we're going to be presented with challenges and things to learn from. However, we've learned to be in our reality, observing the other reality, and deciding what do we want to bring into our life and what do we allow to stay where it is.
And how we're going to react.
And how we're going to react and respond to what's going to benefit us the best. So my focus is core thinking. His focus is connecting. So bring that together, and you have a dynamic of past, present, future being in one and being an observer versus a participator.
Yeah.
And when you get yourself to that point, then no matter what's being said, what other people are going through, whatever is purported to be happening, it's okay, because we can accept it or not accept it. And I've been on this spiritual path for a long time, longer than before I met him. And what I've discovered for myself is whatever we're saying today is happening was the exact same verbiage 20 years ago.
Yeah.
So it's nothing new. You know, whatever is being passed around in the communities and in the world at large, history repeats itself.
Yeah.
So then you have to look at, you know, how much do I want to participate in anything that's fearful, that's stressful, that's damaging, that's disharmony. And we decided, you know, life's too short.
Yeah.
We want to enjoy life and live it to the fullest.
You know, and a part of that is that, you know, I taught human dynamics for years in companies management. And one of the things I taught is, you know, before you go talk to people, get that neon sign off your forehead. The one that says, I had a bad morning.
Mm.
The one that says, wow, somebody did something I didn't like. Clear it out.
Yeah.
And apparently from what, and I watched that work, it worked very well. And I got feedback from the people that I taught that with, that it actually really worked.
Yeah.
Now that we're more familiar with the law of attraction, and how you invite things to yourself that's negative polarity, then we're a little more careful about where we spend our time thinking, and we make sure that neon sign on our forehead promotes, you know, companionship and love and cooperation with others, and that things are going to be fine. You know, it just a different neon sign.
Yeah.
Because of that, we don't get a lot of negative polarity brought to us. And a lot of the time, it's people.
Yeah.
And for some reason, if they know you're struggling with something, they can tend to take the job and come and bring you some more so you can learn about it.
Yeah, it's that codependent wounded healer frequency. You know, there's, you know, one of the things that used to bother me was people, you know, with abilities, and we all have abilities, that would come in and well, I was going to say presume, or assume, but they would say, this is wrong with you, or that's wrong with you. And I'm sure some of that had to do with the neon sign that was on my head, you know, as I figured that out. I was in the corporate world 2 years ago, and one of the early jobs I had was door-to-door sales. And to your point, I remember sitting in a sales training session, and the guy was talking about the most important door you're going to come up against today is the one you shut behind you before you come to work. So very similar. To control that frequency, I mean, if you're going to exude those things that you're talking about, you can't do it if you got that stuff you're carrying with you. So again, a lot of people, I just want to kind of give them this restated. want that partner almost to a point where they're overly attached to it. I guess actually that can be a, uh, kind of a repelling mechanism. I think we all are kind of getting to that truth. Would you say that clearing yourself, raising your frequency, um, is the road to attracting that other half, um, and or anything else you could add to that?
I I have to agree with that, but that's from our own experience,
Yeah.
and continued experience that, um, in order, as far as I know, to actually attract your twin flame, you've mentioned frequency. That is a mental. Everybody calls it spiritual,
Mm-hmm.
but the ancients believed that all of creation and the mind of the all was mental.
Mm-hmm.
We can call it spiritual all we want, but what we are thinking in my head, what she's thinking in her head, if those frequencies get way out of whack and different, we're
Yeah.
going to have a struggle.
Yeah.
Attracting your twin flame, um, we watched that happen all the time. That struggle. We used to have actually the original twin flame group with over 6,000 people in it, a Facebook group. We watched that struggle go on. We watched the same people 2 years later. We're still fighting with the same thing.
2 years
Uh,
after that,
the
still.
Mm-hmm.
in we created it to help, but for some reason you can't be helping some of it,
Yeah.
Well,
because their thinking doesn't match what they say that they want.
right. And part of that is not just being on the same frequency, but looking at what is codependency you mentioned earlier. What is the codependency in you if you're seeking, and when am I going to meet my twin flame? What is that need that you're not feeling for yourself that you're
Mm-hmm.
looking for somebody else to fulfill for you? And no relationship, whether it's a twin flame or anything else, can sustain itself if you are depending on someone else for your happiness, for your joy, for your, you know, for whatever it is. And that's one thing that helped us, is that we didn't need each other.
Yeah.
We enhance each other, we improve each other, we grow together as a couple, but individually, we are our own entity growing. But we're fortunate that we keep an eye on each other to see if there's an area that we're our frequency is becoming imbalanced, and we work very quickly to make sure it becomes balanced. And we'll go off on our own to work on that,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
then observe and watch how that's impacting our relationship. And when we had that page, it was hurting our relationship. So we
We were
decided,
taking on everybody's negative stuff,
right,
and those groups tend to be more negative than positive.
they can be, yes. And and it's because everybody is struggling with finding that love, but it has to be love of self first.
Yeah. Of course.
And really undoing and unraveling whatever's from the past, that baggage that they're bringing into the present, and leaving, getting rid of that and focusing on now into the future.
And what we found out for ourselves, and this is something for everybody to consider, as twin flames, we we thought that was our mission, and maybe it was for a while, to have that group and talk to everybody, encourage them. But we found out when we shut that down that we actually got out in public more and did, and by doing just what we naturally do, um, we were more helpful. We're more helpful there.
Yeah. Yeah. You mentioned, taking time when something comes up, even taking time alone, in and of yourself, meaning separating energetically and maybe even in the physical. Um,
Yeah.
and it sounds like that's something that has remained. I think,
Yes.
again, a lot of people, I think that was a great explanation by Eileen, that, what is it, why is it that I'm wanting to have this, as the end all cure all? What's the real root of the problem? Because I'm not whole in myself. But so do you find that is, you talked about it a little bit, but I mean, when you step away, it allows you to, take that responsibility on to yourself, I think is what you're
Yeah.
saying. And
Yes. It's interesting enough, and it might be a more male trait, and I'd like to hear from Eileen on it. How often did you get in a verbal confrontation with somebody, and you try to hold your ground and try to convince the other person, and then you walked away from it and went and was by yourself for a little bit, and then after a little while you go, but that wasn't even worth it.
yeah, right. Or you get to the
What
point
does
where
it
you're,
matter? It
or
doesn't.
like, what was it even about? What did it,
Yeah,
what
it's like,
started it?
oh yeah.
Yeah.
So I know that, and I realize at a certain point, it's like if there's a little bit of abrasiveness, it's like, does this matter?
Yeah.
No, it doesn't.
Yeah.
What does matter, that we resolve how to use we fortunately use everything that's negative that comes up, we turn it into a positive.
Yeah. Yeah.
I
As if
want to,
it's, yeah. Go ahead.
yeah, I want to add to it, but say your question again.
Well,
You,
basically, I guess the value, um, which would also kind of dissolve the illusion that,
Yeah.
two people that are like the two of you are together 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, and everything is just hunky dory. Not that there's any negatives, but I like what Trevor was saying, in that, to turning a negative into a positive, which this solitude, my wife has a saying: sometimes it's you, sometimes it's me, and sometimes it's just the energy. And that energy could be, like you were saying earlier, sometimes it's people. But I find that when we step away, uh, it takes the accentuation off of pointing the finger at anything or anybody goes away, and it's really just what Trevor said: taking it into yourself, fully 100% responsible for what you're feeling and what's happened. So I guess, my question was really the value of that solitude, and the constancy of it. Like, it's, I'm sure things have gotten easier for you in 11 years, and your telepathy is, gone to higher and higher levels, but still you go to that solitude when necessary.
right. Yeah. So the value of that solitude is it gives time for the individual to get out of the head, because whenever you're in conflict, you're out of the heart and you go right to the head. And to be able to step away and just have some peace and quiet to settle the energies down, and to really go inward and contemplate and look at, is it, like your wife says, is it me? Is it him? Is it both of us? Is it something outside of us?
Hmm.
Um, as a life transformational coach, I've learned that whenever there's conflict or contrast with another person, there's always something behind.
Yeah.
So if there's a trigger, if there's a thought, if there's a emotional attachment, there's something behind it that's created that trigger. Then you got to dig deeper to see, okay, so why is that trigger still there? What's causing that behavior, that thought, so that it comes forward into a present conflict? And
And to point out again, we're talking about little stuff.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
Oh, it's just little stuff.
like you didn't screw in the light bulb correctly.
Yeah.
You left coffee grinds on the
A little
counter.
quicken.
How many, you need two other people to help you.
Right, right. But we're
we do a
very,
lot of bantering, playing around, which I think probably solves some of that,
Mhm.
well, and I'm sure you can appreciate this and understand everything in life is layers, levels, and
Yeah.
dimensions, right?
Yeah.
So if we're totally focused on where's my other half, why can't I attract him or her, what's holding it back, why is it not working, we're in our head.
Yeah.
We have to get out of the head and realize there's bigger um, there's principles and there's bigger energy that's beyond our knowledge, that is part of the game we're playing.
Yeah.
Part of the life's the master teacher.
would you suppose that when a person's constantly focused on the lack of my twin flame, that you're really just asking for that lack of to continue.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. It goes back to the core thinking and what we think and do. I like to give this analogy and tell me if you can relate to this with you and your wife. It's like having a dance partner and you've never met before and you're asked to dance together and you don't have that connection, but it requires a trust in the person leading, but also the person leading to trust that that person's going to communicate with them and merge with them in that dance, especially Latin dancing, where you can be close to where once you've practiced enough and you've worked together enough, that dance becomes very fluid and almost natural. And, you don't have to think.
Yeah.
That's the process of when you connect with someone. It's going to be uncomfortable. It's going to be a little challenging because you don't know what the other person is thinking, doing, and how they behave. But as you practice with the dance, you learn what their tendencies are and how they think and how they move. And then you can adjust and adapt. And I do not like to use the word compromise. It's not compromise.
No.
It's learning to communicate in a way that transforms and it's cooperation with the relationship so that it's a win-win for both people and those around them.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
So
it does.
When we dance, I let her lead.
Well, you're a smart man and I'm following your direction. I figured that out from the get-go. Although I'm not saying I didn't resist it at times, as I was.
I know, but she gives me
shadows.
those little clues.
I do.
So, right. Mine does too. And big clues. Right.
Yeah.
Sometimes I miss the big ones and see the little ones.
Yeah.
I think mostly they're just trying to protect their feet, actually.
Yeah.
So, and then there's a lot of talk about, we're coming out of the age of duality into the Trinity energy, triad, and that when two people come together, they create a third energy, whether it's got a physicality or it doesn't, or both. You obviously have a third energy manifested in the work that you're doing on Roku, that's on Roku. Do you see any other, and you also mentioned about when you go out in public, it sounds like that third energy is present or visible because people are coming up and wanting to hug you, but have you seen any other evidences of this third energy? And do you have any thoughts on that?
Another thing that a lot of what we do is in crowds. We're actually running cameras, filming our production.
Yeah.
So we're in charge of 4 and 5 cameras. We won't let anybody else touch them. We've tried having other people run those, and we actually run them better by ourselves together. But it affects the people that are performing. They actually perform better than they usually do.
And we have found over the years, even though we don't have headphones to communicate with each other, the more that we do this work, the more that our camera work looks like it's one camera.
Wow.
So I'm on right stage, he's left stage. And there's times after he's produced it, I'm like, we did the exact same move at the exact same time, and he was able to produce it so it looked like it was one camera creating that image.
Yeah.
When we first met, I often had these visions. I think Trevor did too. And there's a picture in Google under Twin Flame that represents this. So I mentioned the cog in the wheel, but then I had these visions of us kind of merging like this and twirling in the air with all this energy around it and kind of the colors of your background there. So if you were to Google Twin Flame photos, you might see that. And that was for me, my visual connection identity as the Twin Flame concept started to present itself in many different ways to where I could understand what was going on. In the beginning, it blew our minds. We were like, what in the world is going on?
Wow.
It was crazy energy and just connections and mental, emotional, and it was like a Pandora's box opened, and it just kept coming out and coming out and coming out, to where we actually stepped away from communication. Of course, it didn't last, couldn't last, just to get a break from it. But then we
Yeah.
got pulled back in. And anytime we tried to slow down or pull back, um, something would bring it back center. And when we moved to Jacksonville, we were in no rush to get married. We were like, we're okay. We'll just hang out together and be partners. Well, the universe had a different plan, because I'll give you two specific incidences that are just like, wow. We went visiting my dad in Cocoa Beach, walking along the beach, and this lady out of the blue came running up behind us and said, and came in front of us, and she said, "Are you guys married? I gotta know." And we just laughed and said, "No, we're not." And she said, "Well, you should be." And we didn't know this lady from anywhere. So then about 3, maybe 4 months later, we're walking in the downtown area in Jacksonville. And there's a boardwalk, and there was a gentleman playing the saxophone. And when we went to walk by him, and I kid you not, right in the middle of right when we came into his energy, he switched to the wedding song. And we both stopped dead in our tracks, looked back at him, and I'm like, "How did you know?" And he smiled and winked, and he just said, "I knew."
But to further address what your question was about, you know, basically, have you found with the two of you together for a little while that it seems to create a third entity?
Yeah.
Um, I don't know everything about this, but I felt for a long time that her and I together in harmony, syncs us with all that is,
Yeah.
with the mentalness or the spiritual
Yeah.
of the universe. And that just might be the third energy or the entity. A part of that pocket is us.
Yeah. Yeah. It's almost like for me, and this has happened over the last 3 or 4 weeks, this part of it. So we'll lay next together and we connect every night. And I start seeing like a really tall, narrow pyramid.
Mm.
And then the top of it representing, and to your point, almost like, I have a higher self, she has a higher self, and then the two have a higher self. And that just like our higher selves connect us to everything, that third point kind of has the same type of function, I guess. So yeah, I can see what you're saying, where it actually creates. You used the word Pandora's box a while ago, and I started giggling. But yeah, I could see where my relationship with my higher self brought in certain things, very expansive as well. But when this started to occur, which really occurred from the beginning, but as I got to get a better feel for it, it has a whole exponential expansion way beyond, so there's something to that. Yeah, I get what you're saying.
I've gotten to the point where, it seems reasonable to me that only about 25% of the energy that we are is invested into the physical here.
Yeah.
And the other 75%, some people say the observer,
Yeah.
But I'd be interested in knowing what they're observing, that part.
Yeah.
And they more than likely they're going to learn more, bring back more experiences. That would be my guess. There's not very much known about that.
Yeah. I think that's maybe part of what we're doing now or coming into. But now you had told that story, Eileen, about that energy, the Pandora's box energy, and how you had to step away at times. Have you had have you had a lot of dimensional experiences together? I mean, there's another thing that I think is, unique to this situation. And I guess you could even say we're two or more gathered. But, you know, a lot of people in their awakening have divine episodes, divine intervention, divine experiences, apparitions, all kinds of stuff all over the board. Have you had, you know, have you?
We both have a story, but
We're-
you can talk
we're-
about your
we're-
lineup, and I'm going to talk
About
about
what?
your lineup, and then I'll
Oh,
talk
yeah.
about, yeah. But first, let me talk about prior to meeting him. So I do meditation, and that's part of my quiet time is I allow myself to just center, be quiet, and allow thoughts and visions to surface,
Yeah.
and just be in that space of oneness with the all that is. Prior to meeting him, by about 2 years, maybe 3, I started getting this vision of a Native American platform where they put the dead to burn, right? And what I discovered over time was, and I kept trying in conscious, while I'm in meditation, I can still be in conscious of being able to try to um, push that meditation to the next level. So like, okay, what's next? Where's the, what's the next scene? And I never could get to that next scene until things that I was working on in the physical would transform. Then I would get another piece of the next scene of that visual in that meditation. When I met him, I realized it was him in that dream. He had died, and long story short, over a 2 or 3 year period, the whole episode of that lifetime came into my vision, and deep emotion, where I cried a lot, even he cried, because it was a broken contract someone else broke that caused our lives to be finished in that lifetime. And I held him in my arms, and I got a visual of crying a tear. It dropped on his lip, and I said, I'm giving this piece of me to you to take
Wow.
with you. Now, when we met, he said, I have something to give you, but I don't know what it is. And I never connected the two until we were together. And there was a time that I heard, be still. I'm like, okay, I'll be still. And I felt something come from him to me, and he was giving that piece of me back to me.
Wow.
So, yeah. So, when you have experiences like that, it makes you kind of sit back and wonder, okay, what's this all about? And and not to be too tied to the illusion of the all the drama and the chaos and everything that's going on, because that's not the quest of life. The quest of
Yeah.
life is self.
And then we had, interesting physical experiences. Again, we were 3,000 miles apart at this time. I had put on my dresser a dime and 2 pennies. It was just happened to be in my pocket. She asked me, I believe the next day, a dime and 2 pennies showed up
I don't know
on my bathroom counter. Do you know anything about this?
You
I'm
can't
like,
make this shift up, man.
I'm like, oh no. Well, and then shortly after that, I had an experience going on where I bought a heater for a couple people that were staying at the house, and they immediately dropped it and destroyed it. And I was holding it, looking at it, going, what a shame. On her end, the heater that she had in the bathroom moved
shifted.
to a different spot.
Well, it shifted.
And we didn't
position.
know, either one of us know it was happening. So it just, that kind of stuff like that.
Well, to this day, I find dimes and 2 pennies in sequence.
Yeah,
Sometimes all at
all the
once.
time.
Sometimes I'll find a dime, and then it's like, okay, the 2 pennies are going to show up. And sometimes in the most odd places that you would not find dime and 2 pennies. So somehow that's a connection that we have.
One time we were in a crowd and somebody dropped all of this change,
Well,
quarters and nickels and dimes, and
a
it was
portal in the
it was
energy
just like
opened up
just kaboom. There's this big pile
right in front of us.
of cash on the floor. People bent down and started helping pick it up for us.
I know. And we're like, wait a minute,
They're
we didn't
they're
drop
grabbing,
this.
they're grabbing all the money and going in here, you know, they're helping us pick up all this money off the floor.
Wow, that sounds like an abundance activation.
It's really it. I can tell you this, whatever we need always shows up.
Yeah.
We haven't become wealthy, but we don't need to be, because if
Yeah.
it needs to be there, it's there.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's interesting, because there's actually like this wealth, you know, by the human term security. You have the understanding, or what you think you understand about security, but when there's no security, you have all the wealth in the world. You know, you have all the wealth in the world, and look at, you know, the behavior of just
Yeah.
speaking frequencies and energy of that energy being a person, you know, typically hoarding stuff and being, you know, kind of cheap and all that stuff. You know, there's
Trying to protect it's enough.
yeah, there's you know, I guess, you know, growing understanding. You mentioned polarities earlier, that we're integrating polarities. And some of that, I think for me, ultimately, it's the physical and the non-physical. You know, back to what you said earlier about the 25% and the 75%. I often say to myself, why are we conscious 99.99% of the time here, with which less than 1% of our consciousness, our multidimensional consciousness.
Mm-hmm.
But so, and part of that, which has been, and we're just in either nursery school or kindergarten, you know, if as our view, is along the lines of what comes with these relationships, and maybe the role or the code they're bringing to the earth is sacred sexuality. You know, we both, like yourself, had prior relationships. We were both, by our own decision, celibate when we met. It was designed that way. And then we started that part of the relationship became absolutely different from the get-go. And it's still, you know, expanding in an energy of innocence, you know, and curiosity and childlike wonder. But in this 11 years, have you had an evolution in general with your intimacy? Has it, you know, has it brought in, you know, activations, elevations, information, data code, experiences, interdimensionally, dimensionally, that type of thing?
For us, it's been, we do understand that that sexual energy is about creating.
Yeah.
And we understand the masculine and feminine part of that. The feminine actually creates the ideas,
Yeah.
Everything's brought into this universe through the feminine. And then we also understand the masculine is the will, or the part that says to the creator part, create.
Yeah.
So our experience with this runs on different levels, because we are creating all the time.
Yeah.
All the time. And for us, that sexual energy back behind there actually gives more drive.
Yeah.
To what we're doing, creating in the physical around us with the things that we do. And the sexual energy, personally, is a foundation for us.
Yeah.
In the beginning, I cried a lot
Yeah.
because it was such an intense connection for me. I think you cried some too. You know, it was different than anything I know for myself that I'd ever experienced, and it wasn't physical. It was that bigger, you know, explosion. It was like that third energy becoming a part of the two energies together, and created a huge explosion's the best way I can say it. And we used to laugh, because we're like, okay, how many neighbors just felt that? You know, how far out did that go? And you know, when we're out together, that energy is always running, and people will want to hug us together,
Yeah.
or, come up and say, hey, I want to, rub against you. So
Yeah. Or they even, yeah.
It's a good thing we're not jealous types.
I know.
There's a lot of trust here. We don't really
Yes.
worry about it.
And so it's not a part of our relationship where if we go weeks or months without any connection in that way,
By
it's
the old perspective.
right.
Meaning, yeah.
It's okay because it's always there, and
Yeah,
then we know when it's time to connect,
Yeah.
release, and bring it back to that center again.
Yeah.
Like you
And
said, we're always creating.
Yeah, we agree with that too. It's like, and when those things occur, because like in the old relationships, right? It was like, it was like a routine, right? It was like, are we doing this tonight? It was like, you know what I mean? So, but we found that when these things happen, they last for weeks.
Mhm.
Yes.
Whereas in the old way, it's, roll over and go to bed and start the Groundhog Day again tomorrow. But it's like it's an energetic. It's like an activation in itself, and it lasts and lasts and lasts.
And something that's different in a relationship like what we have and you guys have versus a more mental mind relationship is that there's no thoughts of ownership. So he doesn't think I own you, and of course I don't think I own him. It's more of we are in a partnership. So therefore, everything that we do, think, believe, behave, perceive is all, part of that twirling of the energies together. That's part of that bigger universal energy. So nobody owns anything or anybody within that energy. So that ownership mentality cannot sustain in that relationship.
And to go with that, there's a little part in your brain about the size of a pea. It's called the ego. and that can cause more trouble than anything. And so that keeping out of that section of our brain is really helpful. And I did learn years ago in my own studies that you actually have the right to program that part of your brain to do exactly what you want it to. That's actually helpful.
Yeah, I agree with that, and I think it is part of the team, and it can, if it can, put itself in a secondary position in the back seat, it actually will have a better time if it allows, the rest of the team. Because it thinks it's the size of, what'd you say, a pea, and it thinks it's a watermelon. Yeah.
But
but
the same size as the brain of a bird.
Right.
I got to just say this because I don't want to run out of time, and I want to allow you some time to let people know what you're doing and how to find you. But I got to tell you, since these last few days have been very energetic, lots of I would just say unspoken alignments, and just I don't know. I feel really good about what's happening. But I'm looking at the two of you. Now, let me ask you first. Are you in Jacksonville, Florida?
Yes.
Yeah, I lived there 3 times years ago. Yeah, years ago. But I'm looking at the two of you, and I know this sounds corny and cliche, and we've all said it back in the day when we first woke up. Oh, I know you. But I'm looking at the two of you, and I know you. Like I can't even. I'm sitting here looking at you from the beginning, going.
That's how it seems to work.
Well, are you familiar with Atlantis? A lot of people who know us were part of, the Atlantis energies. So that's possible. But we may have to talk again to figure out,
Yeah, I would like to. I would like to. I'm getting a big validation. I'd love to collaborate again. We're actually down in St. Pete Beach right now. We're going to head down to Fort Lauderdale for about 10 days at the end of the
you're
month.
not very familiar.
No.
And where we're going to be heading through as we head up north, around probably right after the first week of April. But yeah, I'd love to. We'll definitely look at further collaborations if you guys
Yeah,
are.
we might be able to
open
meet
that.
up.
Yeah.
So we just launched a Roku channel called The Knob TV. We have a website, knob-tv.com.
Yeah.
I'm a life coach, transformational coach. So I have a website, corethinkingblueprint.com.
We are Ordinary to Extraordinary Life on
Facebook.
Facebook.
And then we also have a Facebook page called Mojo Monday and Musings. So we like people to join that. And that's all positive. Everything we do is positive. You'll never find, sorry for the Harley clock, you'll never find anything negative. It's all always positive, uplifting, and inspiring.
Yeah. Yeah, I can tell. It's nice to have a conversation, and which is what this show is. It's not an interview, but without certain things being brought up.
Right. Well,
Like, yeah, I just, yeah, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
oh no, I was going to say, we have, it's not in our consciousness to bring negativity into our experience.
Yeah.
So there's no place for it.
Yeah.
Yeah, if it happens, like you spoke of earlier, take responsibility for it. If it goes negative, it's your responsibility.
Absolutely, it is. Absolutely. So yeah, I would, if you get a chance, I think, people on the live and we get a lot more replay action because we're getting suppressed pretty much by Facebook, but we upload these shows to YouTube as a premiere right after the show. But if you get a chance to maybe put your links or anything you want to say into the comments, and I'd also encourage you to maybe put anything like that up in the Soulogy group. There's a really active, engaged group of about 30,000 people. I'd say about 18,000 a week are very active.
Okay.
And so that's a good place to let people know, what you're doing and to get people into your groups and into what you're doing. But I just want to say again, it's good to see you again.
Good to see you again.
I'm not sure where it came from, but it's definitely not a mistake. And I look forward to collaborating with you guys again and again and again. And I wish you all blessings to you and yours. And thank you again for coming.
Blessings
Thank
to
you. You're welcome.
Thank you.
Bye.
Yeah. Peace out.
Peace out.
Peace out.